What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another exclusive deep dive into a global impact story. We are Tasso News, and today, we're diving into a topic that's shaking up the world economy. China has just made a bold move that could reshape the global energy landscape, and the consequences are already being felt from Wall Street to the heart of Texas. If you're worried about gas prices, your electricity bill, or just want to understand why tensions between these two superpowers are escalating, you need to watch this video until the very end. We're breaking down China's 5 strategic moves that are redrawing the world's energy map and how they'll hit your wallet directly. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you in-depth analysis on global economy, geopolitics, and markets every week, and trust me, with today's unstable world, you don't want to miss out on our updates. Asterisk number 5. China imposes tariffs on U.S. energy. China has just delivered a devastating blow to U.S. energy exports, possibly the most aggressive move yet in the ongoing trade war. As of February 10th, Beijing has imposed a 15% tariff on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas (LNG), along with a 10% tax on crude oil. This isn't just a minor trade adjustment. It's a calculated response to the 10% tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. The impact: a potential cut of 300,000 barrels per day in U.S. energy exports, a direct hit to key producing states like Texas, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and New Mexico. To put this into perspective, the U.S. exported around 4.1 million barrels of crude oil per day in 2023. With China as a major buyer, a 300,000 barrel cut represents nearly 7.3% of total U.S. oil exports. And if you think this only affects the big oil companies, think again. The economic shockwave will ripple across the entire industry. Independent producers in the Permian Basin, already operating on thin profit margins, will face increased pressure. Oil service companies could be forced to lay off workers. Communities that rely on oil tax revenues will see budget cuts in schools and public services. And yes, this could eventually impact domestic gas and natural gas prices. But this is about more than just numbers. This move signals a fundamental shift in global energy dynamics. Over the past decade, the U.S. has transformed from a net importer to a major energy exporter, gaining significant geopolitical leverage. Now, China is directly challenging that position. Major U.S. energy companies like Cheniere Energy, the country's largest LNG exporter, and oil giants like ExxonMobil and Chevron are already assessing the damage from these tariffs. Cheniere, which sent about 15% of its LNG to China in 2023, could see a major drop in exports due to the price hike caused by the tariffs. Goldman Sachs analysts estimate these tariffs could cut U.S. energy company profits by 3% to 8% in 2025. Depending on their exposure to the Chinese market, this could reduce investment in new production, potentially limiting the future growth of the U.S. energy sector. Number 4. China dominates the renewable energy market. While blocking U.S. fossil fuels, China is quietly building the largest clean energy empire the world has ever seen. The numbers are simply staggering, showing a strategic commitment that leaves Western nations far behind. In 2023 alone, China invested a mind-blowing $890 billion in clean energy. To put this into perspective, that's more than 3 times the U.S. investment, which stood at $280 billion. This isn't just a small advantage, this is absolute dominance. China's solar capacity has already reached 700 gigawatts, a figure so massive that it surpasses the total energy capacity of entire nations. To put it into perspective, that's enough power to run Japan twice over, or the entire state of California 7 times. And it doesn't stop there. China's wind energy has reached 400 gigawatts, exceeding the total U.S. coal sector's capacity. This dominance isn't a coincidence. It's the result of a nationally coordinated strategy that started more than 15 years ago. While Western countries debated climate policies, China was massively investing in research and development of solar and wind technologies, building complete supply chains from raw material extraction to component manufacturing, scaling up production, drastically lowering costs, setting ambitious national goals. Backed by state funding and 5-year economic plans. The result? Today, nearly 80% of the world's solar panels are produced in China. Companies like LONGi Green Energy, Jinko Solar, and Trina Solar dominate the global market. The same goes for wind turbines, with companies like Goldwind and Envision rapidly expanding internationally. But this isn't just an industrial victory, this is a geopolitical power shift. As the world moves toward a low-carbon economy, China is positioning itself as the essential supplier of the technology needed for this transition. China's global hold on renewable energy could give Beijing as much power as Saudi Arabia has historically had over oil markets. What we are witnessing is a fundamental redefinition of global energy power, says Dr. Zhang Wei, an expert in energy geopolitics at Princeton University. China understands that whoever controls renewable energy technologies will control the 21st century economy. This is the new great game, but instead of oil fields, it's about green tech supply chains. And China's ambitions don't stop at its borders. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, it is financing and building renewable energy projects in over 80 countries, from solar farms in Pakistan to hydroelectric dams in Africa. This creates long-term strategic dependencies and opens global markets for Chinese products. Number 3. China restricts critical minerals. In a strategic move that has largely gone unnoticed by the general public, but has sent shockwaves through defense and technology circles, China is tightening its grip on critical minerals essential for energy transition and national security. Beijing has implemented new export restrictions on key minerals like tungsten, molybdenum, and neodymium. These may not be household names, but they are absolutely essential for high-density batteries used in electric vehicles and renewable energy storage, advanced wind turbines that require high-performance permanent magnets, sophisticated weapons systems, including F-35 fighter jets, cutting-edge communication technology, and medical equipment. China controls approximately 70% of the world's rare earth supply, along with significant percentages of other critical minerals like refined cobalt, graphite, and lithium. This dominance is not accidental, but the result of decades of strategic investment in mining, processing, and refining. The implications of these restrictions are deeply concerning. U.S. manufacturers from Tesla to Raytheon could face serious production delays and rising costs. A recent Bloomberg NEF analysis suggests that these restrictions could increase U.S. electric vehicle costs by up to $3,000 per unit, significantly undermining efforts to achieve price parity with internal combustion cars. The U.S. Department of Defense has also raised major concerns. A leaked internal report suggests that these restrictions could delay the production of key weapons systems by up to 24 months. As alternative supply chains are developed. This is economic warfare at its most sophisticated, says retired General Robert Stevens, former Pentagon advisor on resource security. China has identified exactly where our vulnerabilities are and is applying strategic pressure. The irony is that while we debate fossil fuels, the real battle for energy dominance is being fought in the critical minerals sector. The U.S. is trying to fight back, but it's lagging far behind. California's Mountain Pass mine has resumed operations, but it represents only a fraction of China's capacity. Projects in Australia, Canada, and Africa are under development, but most are years away from significant production. Even when minerals are mined outside of China, many still have to be sent there for processing. Due to the lack of refining infrastructure elsewhere, building this infrastructure requires not only capital, but also technical expertise, which China has mastered over the last 2 decades. Number 2. China redirects its oil and gas imports. Do you think China still needs U.S. oil and gas? Think again. While Washington celebrates the growth of U.S. energy exports, Beijing has been quietly diversifying its energy supply, strategically reducing its dependence on American fuel. The numbers tell the story. 2 million barrels per day from Saudi Arabia to 0.2 million barrels per day from Russia. a 45% increase since 2,021 million to 100,000 barrels per day from Kazakhstan, via the China-Kazakhstan pipeline, growing imports from Iran. Despite U.S. sanctions, liquefied natural gas (LNG) from Qatar, secured through a historic 27-year deal signed in 2022. This strategic diversification means that China's new tariffs are not just a retaliation in the trade war. They are a calculated step in a broader plan to reduce U.S. influence over China's energy security. China is executing what we call a de-Americanization of its energy supply chain, explains Michael Chen, Chief Energy Policy Analyst for Asia at Wood Mackenzie. They have carefully studied how energy sanctions have been used as a geopolitical weapon, and they are determined to eliminate this vulnerability. This shift has massive geopolitical implications. Russia and China's energy alliance has deepened due to Western sanctions after the Ukraine invasion. The Power of Siberia gas pipeline, operational since 2019, is already delivering 38 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually to China, with plans to expand capacity even further. Saudi Arabia is pivoting toward China, despite being a longtime U.S. energy ally. In 2023, Aramco announced $10 billion in Chinese investments, including a new refinery in Panjin. There are ongoing talks about pricing oil in Chinese yuan instead of U.S. dollars, potentially undermining the dominance of the petrodollar. China is not just cutting back on U.S. imports, it's building a fortress around its energy future. Refining capacity. Since 2015, China has added 3.6 million barrels per day of refining capacity, surpassing the U.S. as the world's largest refiner. Strategic oil reserves. China's oil reserves have grown to approximately 500 million barrels. LNG terminals. China currently operates 23 LNG terminals, with 11 more under construction. Pipeline network. New oil and gas pipeline connections are being established with Russia, Kazakhstan, Myanmar, and more. This infrastructure makes China less dependent on U.S. energy and more resilient to potential supply disruptions or geopolitical pressure. Number 1. China builds a global energy empire. We have arrived at the most significant and potentially game-changing move of all. China is not just blocking U.S. energy exports or securing its own supplies. It is actively building a global energy empire that could redefine the balance of power in the 21st century. This emerging energy empire spans multiple strategic sectors. Electric vehicles. EVs. China is flooding the global market with its electric vehicles, exporting 1.9 million units in 2024 alone. Brands like BYD, NIO, XPeng, and SAIC are rapidly gaining market share in Europe, Asia, and emerging economies, offering models like the BYD Dolphin for as low as $25. Significantly undercutting Western competitors like Tesla. This expansion is no accident. It is backed by massive government subsidies, coordinated industrial policies, and a vertically integrated supply chain that allows Chinese manufacturers to cut costs while controlling key technologies. A recent UBS report suggests that Chinese EV makers enjoy a 20 to 30% cost advantage over Western competitors, and this gap is only growing. Solar technology. China's dominance in the solar sector is even greater. Companies like Longdi, Jinko Solar, and Trina Solar have achieved economies of scale that Western competitors simply cannot match. China's solar panel manufacturing capacity exceeds 500 gigawatts per year, more than 10 times its domestic demand, enabling an aggressive global expansion. This dominance extends across the entire supply chain. China controls over 80% of all polysilicon manufacturing stages. 95% of the world's silicon wafers for solar panels are produced in China. 85% of all solar cells come from Chinese factories. 75% of fully assembled solar modules are manufactured in China. Western attempts to compete through tariffs and local content requirements have proven largely ineffective, as Chinese manufacturers simply build factories in countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand to bypass trade restrictions. Energy storage, perhaps the most strategic sector of all, is energy storage, which is crucial for managing renewable energy fluctuations. Here too, China is establishing a decisive advantage. China controls 77% of global lithium-ion battery manufacturing capacity. CATL, the world's largest battery manufacturer, is worth more than General Motors. Chinese companies have secured access to 60% of the world's lithium reserves and 80% of cobalt processing facilities. This dominance in energy storage has far-reaching implications, extending beyond the energy sector to national defense, grid resilience, and advanced technology infrastructure. What we are witnessing is a tectonic shift in the global energy order, explains Dr. Eleanor Rivera, director of the Global Energy Transition Institute at Georgetown University. China has identified clean energy as the defining economic battleground of the 21st century and is moving all its pieces strategically. This isn't just about making cheaper solar panels or batteries, it's about reshaping global geopolitics through control of the technologies that will define our energy future. International expansion. China's strategy goes far beyond just manufacturing. Through its Belt and Road Initiative, China is building energy infrastructure in dozens of countries. A 2.5 gigawatt solar power plant in Indonesia, a 3 GW hydroelectric plant in Pakistan. Multiple wind projects across Africa and Latin America. Smart power grid development across Southeast Asia. These projects not only create markets for Chinese products, but also establish long-term technological dependencies. Once a country adopts Chinese energy technology, it is often committed to that platform for decades. In conclusion, ¿qué significa esto para usted? These 5 strategic moves by China are not isolated actions, they are part of a long-term, coordinated strategy to reshape the global energy order. The implications for consumers, investors, and the United States as a whole are massive. Impact on energy prices. China's tariffs on U.S. energy exports could create a short-term domestic surplus, temporarily lowering prices. However, in the long run, reduced investments due to shrinking export markets could lead to lower production and higher costs. Jobs in the energy sector. Energy-producing states like Texas, North Dakota, and Pennsylvania could see job losses in oil, gas, and coal industries if exports continue to decline. Energy transition. China's dominance over clean energy supply chains means that U.S. efforts to decarbonize will inevitably rely on Chinese technology unless massive domestic investments are made. National security. China's control over critical minerals poses a serious risk to U.S. national security, impacting everything from advanced weapons systems to grid resilience, investment opportunities. Despite these challenges, significant opportunities exist in domestic critical mineral extraction, energy efficiency technologies, and energy security solutions. The real question isn't just how the U.S. will respond to these tariffs, it's how the U.S. will respond to the much bigger strategic challenge. Are we prepared to compete in this new era of global energy dominance? The recent Infrastructure Bill and Inflation Reduction Act have allocated $370 billion for clean energy investments, but this pales in comparison to China's spending, and implementation has been slow and fragmented. What's clear is that we are at a turning point. The political, corporate, and individual decisions made in the coming years will determine whether the U.S. can maintain its influence in global energy markets or cede this critical ground to China. What do you think? How should the U.S. respond to China's strategic energy moves? Are we doing enough to compete in the future global energy economy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analysis on the economic and energy trends shaping our future. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to understand these critical developments. Remember, information is power in today's complex geopolitical landscape, and we are committed to bringing you the deepest, most insightful analysis every week.